Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into an incredibly profound 2,000-year-old text, the Mahaparina Nirvana Sutra. We're going to uncover a perspective that completely upends how we modernly understand happiness. Have you ever finally achieved that one thing you desperately wanted, only to find the joy fading almost instantly, replaced by this lingering anxiety that you might lose it? Well, this text argues that what we conventionally consider happiness might actually just be an illusion. It might just be a cleverly disguised form of suffering. Let's unpack exactly why.
There's this amazing metaphor in the text about two inseparable sisters. One is named Merit, and she brings incredible wealth and fortune. But her sister, Darkness, brings total ruin and decay wherever she goes. When a homeowner tries to welcome Merit in but kick Darkness out, Merit basically says, "Look, if you love me, you must also love my sister." This perfectly hits the nail on the head of the sutra's core thesis. You absolutely cannot accept worldly fortune without also accepting its inevitable ruin. They are a total package deal.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the illusion of worldly happiness, deconstruct fundamental sufferings, look at some impermanence in metaphors, explore King Mandatha's fall, and finally, dive into the true nature of pleasure.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the illusion of worldly happiness. Worldly joy is deceptive, and we're going to see exactly how the text strips away that shimmering facade.
To really grasp this deception, we have to look at two totally contrasting mindsets. First, there's the ignorant perspective. This is where, honestly, most of us operate, right? We greedily crave worldly life. We chase wealth, status, physical pleasure, but we do it completely blind to the inevitable approach of aging and death. We see the prize, but totally ignore the expiration date. But contrast that with the wise perspective. An awakened mind, according to the sutra, sees the inherent flaws and impermanence from the very moment of birth. They don't wait for things to fall apart to realize they're fragile. They understand that fragility is baked right into the design from day one.
Moving into Section 2, deconstructing fundamental sufferings. These are the four unavoidable truths and will systematically break down how they're categorized.
The text doesn't just wave its hands and say life is hard. It gets highly analytical, categorizing the unavoidable physical realities we all face. First up is birth, which isn't just seen as a joyous beginning, but as exiting the womb and forcefully kicking off a turbulent cycle. Then there's aging, the unavoidable decay of our physical form and the draining of our youthful vigor. Next is sickness, and I love how specific the ancient text gets here. It defines sickness as a chaotic imbalance of the body's four fundamental elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. It's basically internal warfare. And finally, of course, death.
But the sutra's definition of death goes way beyond just a simple medical event. Death is defined here as an inescapable king, literally an apocalyptic force. The text compares it to cosmic disasters like massive fires, tremendous floods, and devastating winds that just burn, drown, and blow away absolutely everything worldly. Wealth, status, physical beauty, none of it survives. The only thing spared from this total dissolution, the text argues, is the enlightened state of the great nirvana.
Which brings us to Section 3, impermanence in metaphors. Visualizing impermanence is where this text really comes alive, using visceral, everyday examples to make these concepts stick.
To explain the true suffering of aging, the sutra offers this really powerful visual. Imagine a serene pond, completely filled with vibrant, blooming lotuses. It's stunning, full of life and color. That represents our youth and vigor. But then, without warning, a violent hailstorm drops out of nowhere, instantly shredding those beautiful blossoms into floating debris and decay. The sutra uses this to explain that aging and impermanence are exactly like that hailstorm. They inevitably and indiscriminately shatter the physical beauty and strength we cling to so tightly.
Or take this super practical, striking image. Aging is like a broken axle on a heavy cart. Think about what a cart is designed to do. It's meant to carry heavy loads and move forward, right? Well, when the axle breaks, the entire vehicle, no matter how shiny or beautifully painted it is, becomes completely useless. The sutra uses this to represent our eventual inability to absorb good teachings, practice meditation, or perform the vital tasks we once handled with total ease.
And then there's this pretty shocking analogy about the cycle of birth and our desires. The text actually likens chasing worldly life to a foolish, hungry kid trying to pick a mango out of a pile of dung, thinking they can just wash it off and enjoy a sweet piece of fruit. But a wise adult knows the fruit is fundamentally tainted by where it's sitting and refuses to pick it up at all. The underlying point is incredibly profound. You simply cannot extract pure, lasting joy from a worldly system that is fundamentally rooted in impermanence and decay. The wise see the taint, the foolish just see the fruit.
All right, Section 4, King Mandata's Fall. Let's anchor these abstract concepts in an epic story to deeply understand the suffering of separation.
If anyone ever won the game of life, it was King Mandatha. Think about his timeline here. He rules benevolently for 84,000 years. He obtains the miraculous golden wheel, letting him literally conquer all 4 earthly continents. Thousands of sons, infinite wealth, perfect health. But of course it's not enough. He ascends to the heavens, Treastram is a heaven, where he literally shares a throne with Indra, the emperor of the gods. But how does it end? Consumed by an insatiable greed to rule heaven entirely alone, his malicious thought breaks his merit. He falls all the way back down to earth, becomes desperately ill and dies, completely separated from everything he ever loved.
His massive downfall perfectly defines a core concept in the sutra, the suffering of separation. This is the profound agony of being torn away from loved ones, cherished status, and even heavenly pleasures, all dictated by the absolute law of impermanence. So the crucial takeaway here is this. The higher the status you achieve, the tighter you cling to your wealth or your family, the more agonizing the tear is when you inevitably lose it. King Mandatha's unimaginable success was literally the very setup for his unimaginable suffering.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, the true nature of pleasure. We're redefining joy here with perhaps the most mind-bending argument of this entire explainer.
Think about what we universally celebrate as pleasures, and compare them to their hidden realities according to the text. We want wealth and treasures, sure, but the text points out this just creates immense anxiety that they'll be stolen or lost. We worship youth and vigor, but it's slowly decaying every single second, ultimately leading to despair when it fades. We cherish family and loved ones, but they are the literal root of that suffering of separation we just talked about. So these things we label as pleasures are actually just hidden seeds. They're Trojan horses that are absolutely guaranteed to blossom into future suffering.
Which brings us to maybe the wildest twist in the whole text. The sutra argues that in the worldly realm, there is actually no such thing as true joy. What we call pleasure is really just a temporary relief from an ongoing state of suffering. Imagine a prisoner condemned to 1,000 lashings. If the punisher suddenly stops for just a minute to take a breath, the prisoner feels this massive wave of joy and relief. But they aren't actually happy, right? They're just temporarily experiencing the absence of active pain before the beating starts up again. The sutra argues that a nice meal, a promotion, a new car, these are just momentary pauses in the continuous lashings of birth, aging, sickness, and death.
So I want to leave you with a pretty heavy but essential question as we wrap up this explainer. If we look at the sharp, uncompromising clarity of this ancient text, if every worldly pleasure we chase fundamentally contains the seed of its own decay, if merit always brings her sister darkness through the front door, where will you seek true, lasting peace? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this shift in perspective helps you examine the lotuses in your own pond just a little bit differently today.